Hey everybody, Greg Poole here at Bojunkie Media, bojunkie.com. It's time for another podcast. We have some exciting things happening in the archery world, and by world this time I don't just mean the hunting world, I mean the global archery world. For those of you that are viewing this on video, you can obviously tell that me and today's guest must have exchanged emails about shirt color because we're both wearing a blue shirt, which is funny. I
I
have
like yours better than mine, though. It's a nice shirt you got on there.
right? Mine has his name on it. His does not have his name on it. So, anyway, for those of you listening, today's guest is Greg Easton. As you know, he is one of my favorite people to talk to in the industry. We always have good conversations, whether we're at a shoot or we're doing a podcast or just whatever. He's just I've always found him to be a very engaging person. Just a nice guy. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Good job to his parents. And so, today's podcast, while I do like to catch up with Greg periodically, this time of year, for a lot of you that pay attention, might not be a normal time I would catch up with Greg, but Greg is currently running for the president of World Archery. Now, I've had a lot of you have messaged me since I made my video the other day, making it clear that I think Greg's the right person for the job, but I am absolutely ignorant. I'm clueless. I have no idea how the voting works or how you'll get elected or who gets to vote. I don't know. And so we will find that out today. I'm quite sure he knows. But anyway, let's get this thing started. Welcome to the program. It's Mr. Greg Easton. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Greg. Good to see you. Thanks.
Absolutely. I appreciate you wearing the blue shirt. You must have, yeah. No, folks, we did not arrange this. That's just how it goes. Now, you and I were texting a little bit. You were just doing some traveling. Were you over in Spain for the World Cup?
I was, yeah. Started off in Madrid for the World Cup there, and to see that and talk to people, talk a little bit about the campaigning and running for the position, and just spent some time doing that, and then did a few more stops in Europe doing the same thing, talking to some of the federations there.
Nice, nice. So let's go ahead and address the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And no, not me, everybody. Calm down. And that is why. For those of you that don't know, Greg's father Jim was president, I believe, from the mid to late 80s until 2005 or so.
Yeah, 16 years. I know
Yeah.
that for
Yeah.
sure. So
So Jim Easton was president of World Archery for a good amount of time. Obviously Greg has a busy schedule. He, with the foundation, and yes, folks, I will be getting into some of the questions that you might be wondering about how he's going to juggle all of these different things. But for right now, I guess, Greg, the very first question when I heard, first of all, I was happy about it because I think you're the right guy for the job. But uh, just from your own perspective, why?
yeah, sure, Greg. Good question. And it's I can go back a little bit in time. I spent some time on the World Archery Board. Um, can't remember how many years now. Quite a few years on that board, getting involved with World Archery, kind of seeing what was going on in there. About 2.5, almost 3 years ago, I resigned from that board for kind of personal and professional reasons, and just some things that were going on. And what that did, I got away from kind of that World Archery level of stuff for a while, and then at one point in time, kind of started looking back at World Archery. And as you leave a situation, and then when you go back and look at it, you see things differently. And
Sure.
I definitely did. I kind of saw things differently. I had started getting a little back involved with some of the people in archery and federations and that sort of thing, and just hearing a lot of questions. Really, all through my career, I've had people ask me, "When are you going to be president?" But more about, "Hey, we need you. We need something different. We don't like sort of the direction things are going." Um, and I thought, well, okay, maybe I could actually be helpful here. Not to take away from anything that's been done. I think Dr. Erdner and Tom did a lot of great things, fantastic things over uh, his 20 plus years of being in those roles, but just felt like, hey, there's an opportunity here to do something different, and I felt that some of my skills could help,
Sure.
and sort of talked myself into it. I've done a lot in my career, and I'm like, hey, maybe this is a chance to kind of do something. I was nowhere near or even thinking about retiring, so I'm like, hey, I want to do something else and figure out how else. We've done a lot and given a lot back to archery, but how else I might be able to help.
Absolutely. And so that kind of begs the next question is, and for those of you wondering, I'm going to explain something real quick. There is Easton Technical Products, which makes tubes, all kinds of tubes for shooting out of bows and other tubes. And then there's the Easton Foundation. And so correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but you're not going to the place where the arrows are made every single day to
Right. Well,
deal with arrows. And
there's
so
a bow company too, Don't forget about that.
exactly. And
There's a there's two operating companies, if you will. One making tubes and arrows and one making bows. And no, absolutely not. Yeah, I actually it's been quite a few years. My dad had his stroke in 2010 and took him out of commission for the most part pretty early. Um, And as I took over uh, the foundation, the kind of the corporate headquarters that owns those two companies, I kind of realized that I can't just keep trying to run one of them. So first thing I did was hire someone else to run Easton Technical Products. And then over the years, just more and more kind of distance from the day-to-day operating stuff because one, to work on the foundation. It's as I told my dad early on when he put it together, I'm like, I don't know who's going to staff this thing because I think giving away money well is a lot of work, right? You can just give away money, that's easy. But if you wanted to actually do something, it
right.
takes some work. And wanted to, dedicate kind of the next 10 years of my not life kind of rolling myself forward. I got myself away a lot from the operating companies. I run the holding company that owns those two companies. I've got somebody there who's my chief executive officer or president of that holding company that runs day to day with the folks. So, I'll get involved with quarterly update meetings and that sort of thing, but not involved with the day to day stuff, which I think really gives me maybe where you're going, but gives me enough distance. There's some people that wait, how can a guy who runs an archery company making products for archery, some of the companies are sponsors of World Archery, how can you be a run that organization and not have a conflict of interest? Um, the criteria is not to have is to have no conflict of interest. It's just to be aware of them and make sure you're managing them. So is owning a sponsor a potential conflict of interest? Yes. When it comes time to negotiate a contract between World Archery and one of the companies, I won't be involved. And that's what you do. You basically
Um,
recuse yourself from anything that even could be perceived as a conflict of interest. So it's very manageable for me. As a matter of fact, I do it a lot with the foundations. They can't benefit each other. The companies can give stuff to the foundation, but if there's any even perception that the the foundation gave something back to the companies in return, the IRS gets involved, and they're a lot more nasty than a conflict of interest. Uh, they
well,
make tax deductions go away, and that gets really expensive. And so I kind of know how to deal with that, and that's maybe a long answer to your question there.
well, you actually read my mind. I out of respect, I wasn't necessarily going to use the term conflict of interest, but yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
I was going to dance around that, and I'm not very good at dancing, but you just
yeah.
right through it
No, they're
and addressed
yeah,
it.
yeah, for sure. They're there, and I know that the World Archery and that IOC world is much more, sensitive about it than maybe 20 years ago when my dad was in there. Um, but there's really clear procedures of how you declare it, how list them out. As a matter of fact, you look on the IOC website where they recently had an election for president. There were seven candidates, not somewhat surprisingly, it's seven candidates. Almost, I looked at three or four of them. They don't call it conflicts of interest. They call it other interests or something that they list all these companies that they're related to or board. What
Right.
I thought was funny is they don't say what they do. They just list the company name. What I had to disclose on my nomination form was, okay, what's the potential conflict of interest? What's your role? Kind of like, oh, Easton Technical Products. I'm on the board. I own it, right? I own the company that owns it, that kind of thing. So,
Right. Right.
um, you had to disclose how you're involved and then really what you'll do to mitigate any chance of an actual conflict.
Gotcha. Well, and Folks, I mean, a lot of people, first of all, thanks for just blasting right through and just answering that absolutely straight up. I appreciate that. I mean, so with the Hoyt and the Easton technical product side, I can just tell you right now, the Greg has presidents in place for each of those companies. He basically lets the presidents do what they want to do with those companies. Now, when it comes to quarterly reports and all that other kind of stuff, that's not what I'm talking about. Mainly, I'm just talking about like ATA stuff, other
Mhm.
things. Greg empowers the presidents of each of those companies to run the companies as they see fit, within the framework of the oversight and all that kind of stuff. So no, Greg absolutely. I don't want to say hands off, but now when it comes to the foundation, does that connection have any more or less weight than the actual product, like the Hoyt and Easton technical product side? Does the foundation connection have any more or less weight than those?
Good question. No, I would actually think less from the standpoint of the foundation is not a sponsor of World Archery.
Oh, good point.
Um, we, don't make products or anything they use. I guess if we were to become a sponsor, then there's a little bit of a, is that a conflict? Or if they stop doing it, was that the real issue with a conflict of interest is one party's making a decision, they're working on a contract or something, and I can benefit if it gets put in place, for example. So I try to, incentivize my companies to, hey, you should sign that contract because it benefits us. And really, the point would be if it's good for the company and it's something World Archery wants to do, then they should be able to do that. Sort of like, what do they say? Two willing parties, right? You got a buyer and seller. If
Right.
they want to do business, that's great. I'm just not involved with it.
I got
So
you.
if they don't want to do business, if the companies say, I don't see any value out of whatever we're doing anymore, and they want to end a contract, that's going to be up to them. And I would need to stay, out of that thing. Or if especially if there's a conflict over something or some kind of issue that they're arguing or disagreeing about how the contract's being executed, again, I'd have to stay out of that. But that's, I think a rarity if ever. It's not like every day you have those issues. And so I think even a less of an issue with the foundation.
Okay, good. Good. Yeah. So I hate to, I don't want to give away your secrets here, Greg, or anything, but financially, I think you're okay. And so let's talk about this role and pay. Um, First of all, this just became a paid role under certain criteria here not too long ago, like under a decade ago. And so you know, I mean, I could make some jokes about the pay and all that kind of stuff, but are you actually going to accept a pay for this role when you win?
No, an interesting question and a big change that happened for my dad's career at World Archery, and then for Professor Dr. Erdner's, most of his career was a volunteer position. And that's not uncommon in this international federation world, but more federations have sort of begun, I'd sort of say professionalizing to try to get a president, chief, or kind of chairman of the board sort of level position remunerated or paid so that they can have more, expect more and have more interaction with the organization. So World Archery made that change, and which I think in general is, makes some sense. It to have more of a professional manager, not a volunteer. That's not to say Dr. Erdner wasn't doing a lot. He was. I mean, he was very involved and very hands-on. So I think it was the right move. What they put in the rules was if you are full-time, you can be paid, not will be, because they have to still negotiate that after you get elected, which is a little weird. But
Okay.
um, or if you're not going to be full-time, you can't get the pay. And one, I didn't want to take the pay. Two, I'm not going to be full-time. I still have other interests, or I still want to be, as you said, sort of leading these organizations. I don't run any of them, the foundation, Easton or Hoyt. I don't manage or run any of them, but setting their vision, kind of running them. So I still have some other interests.
Okay.
And I don't want to live in Lausanne yet full time, so I will spend plenty of time there.
Right.
But I decided not to take the pay really for those reasons, but also then because the pay can stay inside the organization and they can stay inside World Archery. It will allow me to structure, I think, the organization a little differently. And instead of having kind of everything rolling up to one role, rolling up to the secretary general role, which is where it kind of hits today, have um, divide those roles up a little bit, which I think just gives people some more bandwidth, gives them ability to do their job better. And you teed it up a little while ago about the teams I have and empowering people. That's really one of the things I think I can bring to World Archery is they've got a good vision, it's support and grow archery and do that sort of thing, or good mission, sorry, but a vision of more of how do we do this in the most collaborative, the way that provides, I'm going to call it customer service, right? These member associations are, um, there are customers. They're not where all our funding comes from, which we can talk about. It's not where all the funding from World Archery comes from. But in my view, if they grow, if these federations can grow, more archers, more quality, higher performing archers, if they can grow their federations, World Archery can grow and become a more important sport in the world. So I really think it's important to grow them, which means how do we work with them? How do we provide that customer service? How do we help them with what's called in that world kind of development, right? What do you need, Greg? What do you need to get your foundation, sorry, your federation off the ground,
Right.
right? You just started up, you're not getting any funding from your sports minister or somebody else. What do you need? Well, I don't have any equipment. I don't have any coaches. I need coach training. I need, what do you need to grow your federation? And then try to figure out the best way that World Archery can help support that and get that to you.
Nice. Well, I mean, and no lies detected. Everything you just said there is absolutely right. So, and once again, folks, I'm just going to be honest. The only thing I know about elections is our political elections, which is a whole nother podcast. But
Just one?
yeah, oh yeah, exactly. And so talk a little bit, like obviously here in America, we have what they call the first 100 days, and they kind of gauge a new president off what they get rid of and do the first 100 days, et cetera, et cetera. Kind of translate that to this conversation. So,
Mhm.
so when you win and I don't know how long is it between when you are declared the winner and you actually start?
Oh, it's hours because the vote is going to be the first thing in the morning on the second day of Congress, September 3rd. They vote for president and then they work their way vice presidents and committees and all the way down. Pretty much that whole day of voting. Once the Congress closes at the end of the second day, I'm president. So it happens right then.
Well, okay then.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, giddy up, son. Okay. And so when you're elected and you take control per se, don't take the control word the wrong way. But when you get into that position and they're like, okay, Greg, 1, 2, 3, go. What are some of the, I don't want to say the top three or top five, but what are some of the things that you will either immediately start trying to work towards? And I mean, obviously, what the answer you just gave about working with federations and stuff is absolutely spot on. But inter world archery, like within world archery, what are some of the top things that you will immediately start working towards? Or on the other side of that coin, be like, yeah, we're done with that.
Yeah, I've given some thought to this, a lot of thought. I don't have my 100-day plan written out yet, but in the big categories, which is a little more easy to talk about. Just talked a minute ago about the team, the staff, the people that are there. Got a lot of good people, a lot of people that know a lot, have a lot of history, a lot of experience. I need to take some time to get to know them,
Right.
right? I know them, I've met them. I can say hi to them when I see them on the field of play or at an event, but I don't know what drives them. I don't know what's motivating for them. I don't know what isn't. I don't know what their view of the culture of the organization should be or is. And so spend some time effectively interviewing the staff that's there and figure out how and where everybody fits, right? What they're committed to, what they want to do, what they're interested in. Maybe some of them don't want to work for me for some reason. Maybe they're really looking forward to it because they see that, given you know, given the right vision of what we're going to accomplish, that they engage with that and say, yes, I want to do my job more in that way. And so that's a great fit. That's a high level. Another one is finance. The World Archery, I mentioned funding a minute ago. Most of the funding comes from the IOC. So the International Olympic Committee, which is money from the Olympic Games. That's how it kind of flows down to the international federations. Um, so understanding that where and how we're spending our money, right? We've got this fund that's coming in. Obviously, I know we're spending it on people. I know we're spending it on other areas. What's our sources of income? Because we have some other income, some other sponsors and things. What's all our sources of income, and kind of where are big categories we're spending this in? Because I think that's a big part of this job is when you set that vision, you're basically doing an allocation of resources, right? Where are we going to spend our time and effort and money
Right.
on things? So where would we be looking at, okay, how are we, and if I see something I want to reallocate, well, some people can just do it overnight. Other people take a little bit of time to say, let's not just rip off the Band-Aid and let the patient bleed to death. Let's patch it up and then, move on to where we want to spend our attention.
Right.
So finances, and then I think just what I hear a lot, and what I noticed when I kind of came back looking into archery is the expense of events. The events have become very expensive for the federations to attend, and say, okay, how do we relook at those events? And sometimes in business we talk about zero-based budgeting, so it's not like, hey, Greg, last year you spent $1,000 on your advertising. What do you think you need this year? It's, hey, Greg, you got zero. Tell me why you need $1.
Right.
So maybe look at these events of like, let's throw it off the table for a minute and then put the parts back on that. What do we absolutely have to have to run these events, and
Right.
build ourselves back up to figure out, is there a way to restructure them that becomes more cost effective for the countries? That means more athletes come, which I think is just good for the sport. It's good for the federation. It's good for, all around, that we have more countries able to come to these events and participate. Um, I'm not saying that's easy. I can see some people that are deeper in the woods on that than I am, rolling their eyes right now, like, oh, it sounds easy. I know it's not going to be easy, but it's one of those areas that I'm committed to looking at.
Wow. Yeah. Well, folks, in case
That's
you're
the first
wondering,
year. There you go.
well, I mean, that was a pretty in-depth answer, which I would hope for. Let's be honest, it's not like this is cold turkey. So, I mean,
Well, and
obviously, yeah. I mean,
I was going to say one other area. Now that you said it, sorry, is because I thought of, oh, there's the first year, kind of joking, but really the next Congress is in 2 years. So any changes you want to make, major changes get voted on at Congress.
mm, okay.
So that's really, to me, the ticking clock is, okay, what can we get thought through, decided on, and presented to ready to go at Congress? Because, and we'll talk about in a minute, but other things would be kind of voting and how we do our voting, for example.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my very next question
Huh.
was, I mean, and obviously, folks, as you just saw from that answer, he's Greg's hitting on several things that I'm going to want to talk about, including the length of events and all that kind of stuff. So obviously, Greg's got no scared in him. He's willing to talk about all of it. So let's talk about the voting real quick. So when you say the Congress, obviously everyone can kind of understand that's when everyone, quote unquote, comes together. Who is everyone? Who makes up the Congress?
Congress is what they're called the member association. So it's the USA Archery of the world, it's Archery Canada, Archery Ireland, basically all those folks around the world. We have about 100 and somewhere near 150 countries that are in, some are, and in good standing. Sometimes people, if they don't pay their bill, they're not in good standing, but it's nice round number is 150 countries that make up the member associations, if you will. The constituents, the shareholders, sort of the organization, they're the one that vote on who the leader is, who the president's going to be.
Gotcha.
Uh, they vote on rule changes. If we're going to rule change something in the Olympic Games or something in um, the World Championships, they would have to, they all have to agree on those rule changes, and so that's who votes, and so that's who will be there in person, pushing the button on a electronic device from a really well-known international company called Lumi Global that does that for the IOC and other people, which is a whole nother story. But so making their vote, And then a few minutes later, once you close the vote, you reveal the results.
Okay. So for like a Greg Poole, whether I'm not a member of USA of World Archery, but even if I was, I don't vote. So if I want my vote, if I'm like Greg Easton needs to have this gig, I need to be harassing Rod Menzer.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be the right person out. You don't need to call him. I think he's pretty much on my side, but
All
no, he
right.
is.
All right.
We've had some great meetings and even some great travels together to
Yeah.
help meet and talk to people. But yes, you'd have to figure out who your head of your national governing body is, your USA Archer of your world, and then yeah, drop your note over there.
Okay, so for any of you listening, and obviously I get great feedback from all of you bow junkies over in Europe and around the world, and I appreciate that. So if you want your voice to be heard when it comes to this World Archery vote for president, find out who the leader of your federation is for whatever country you're in, and that's the person that you need to contact to tell them who you want them to vote for. So that's basically how that works. Now, when it comes down to that vote, not just the vote for president, but the vote for new rules as well. So combine them if they're the same, separate them if they're not. What is it, a simple majority?
Yes, for the president role, yes, it's a simple majority.
Okay.
Um, they have some rule. It's interesting rules. If there were three candidates, for example, and nobody got, and we don't need to go too far down this path, but in some of the other elections, uh, vice president and board members, there's more people running than there are positions open. But in the simple one with the president, if there were three candidates, you could have a vote where nobody got a majority, in which case the person who got the least votes would drop out,
Mm.
and then you revote.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's really what they do, even at the IOC level, is sometimes they go through a number of vote over and over again until they finally get to a candidate. And so that's what would have to happen. But since we only have two candidates, we would vote in a simple majority.
Okay. And then as far as rules, like, the X is an 11 per se. Um, and I don't know all the ins and outs of how that's going to, but just using the X as an 11 and as an example, is that a simple majority vote as well?
Those, as yes, I haven't looked at the rules since I was involved, which it could have changed some, but I doubt it. I think most of those also are simple majority. I think there may be like not bylaws, but kind of fundamental constitutional, hey, we're here to support archery type of thing that might require a two-thirds vote.
Okay.
If it's sort of fundamental, I bet it goes up to a higher level. If it's sort of, are we going to change a rule? If you'd like, enough people like it, we're going to do it. And if enough people don't like it, we don't have the permission to do it. So,
Okay. So let me ask you this, and this is something that those of us that have been around for a minute have kind of seen, and that is, and you did bring up finances and the IOC and that, but sponsorship dollars also matter. And so we have really seen, I don't want to call it a full transition, but we have really seen a lot of straight up archery manufacturers as sponsors, especially American ones, kind of backing away a little bit from World Archery. And look, non-endemic sponsors are great, whether it's, and I think they changed watch companies, but Longines or
yeah.
Turkish Airlines. Obviously, Hyundai's involved, folks, and Hyundai is deeply involved in the Korean Federation. So Hyundai is vested in archery. They're in it. So what would you think about and look at when it comes to starting to kind of, and I'm not saying to get rid of any of the non-endemics in any way. They're, of course we need their money too, but what would a strategy be for you to bring back some of the just straight up archery manufacturers into world archery?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think if you really, I'm making all this up, but I can assume that somebody, no, I mean, the sponsors who had left, um, I guess it's two things. I'm running out of money myself, my business isn't doing well, or I'm not seeing the value.
Right.
Whatever I'm paying doesn't seem to be converting to value for my company. And I think that's a tough part with, World Archery, but for a lot of archery sponsorship, in the grand scheme of things, a pretty small population of people.
Right.
And so you're really trying to reach those people. And, you know, how often do you need to keep putting your banner in front of them if you really think advertising on Bow Junkie is more effective,
Right.
for example, right? Um, so I think it's, one of those two things. And to say, yeah, I'd like to see more of them involved. I said earlier, sort of that customer service angle towards the member associations. And again, I don't know this. I've heard from the member associations. I haven't heard from sponsors, but that's not true. I have heard from some sponsors. You know, what's the relationship like? I think a lot of companies, even some of mine, um, do it because of, oh, yeah, we want to help archery and we feel part of the part of the cause. We feel connected and related to. We
Right.
feel, hey, we need help with something, and they're willing to give us try to make something happen. Um, if you lose a lot of that and it becomes purely transactional, then people start looking at, I got this many dollars out, and I think I'm getting this much value. Why am I doing this?
Right.
So try to uh, try to make sure we're at least addressing, find out why they left, and see if there's a way to get more of them back. Um, I think you're right. The true non-endemics it's, I mean, we've been saying that in archery from the ATA to everywhere else in the world for a long time. And it's a tough hope. It's a tough pull because of the number of people, right? That's the issue is you're one of those non-endemics. You need millions and millions of people. Archery doesn't have that.
Right.
Yeah, I guess we do. We have millions, but we don't have, you know, millions and millions in one market that are dying to watch your sport. I sitting there and looked up at the TV the other day. It was bowling, right? It made me think of the old South Point, right? You've seen those bowling alleys, you've seen
Yeah.
all those people at those tournaments, and I'm watching it. And you know what? It's a bit like archery. You think about the camera shots, right? You got guy bowling, pins, guy bowling, pins, right? It's kind of so I'm watching. I'm like, okay, why is that on TV? Why is there sponsors? What's the difference here? And there's a couple. Okay, they move, which we don't move much. Only a couple of differences. Finally dawned on me. The real difference is there's a lot of people who bowl. A
Yes.
lot. I mean, probably, I don't know, in the US, 100 million people. I don't know. We would look it up. There are a
Probably.
lot of people who bowl. Not that many people are. So if I'm a bowling company, I got to be on there. If I'm a something you might use when you're bowling or when you're done bowling with your beer company, I need to be on there, right? That's what's driving those folks. And we haven't been able to generate that, which I think we've been trying to do some great efforts. We haven't been able to do that over the last 20 years of trying. So now we got to think about, all right, how else do we drive some sponsorships? And I've got some ideas. I think one, there's a way to maybe create an audience that is bigger than the current archers. That's all I'm going to say for that. I got an idea around that. And I think there's an idea for attracting sponsors that are not interested in selling a product.
Right.
And that's all I'll say about that, because that's a non-endemic, because they need to sell more of their widget.
Sure.
There's other entities out there that might have a different interest in archery, and I'm committed to go fish in that pond because I think I could do something there.
Absolutely. Love it. I mean, look, I've told people for years the Super Bowl is not selling football. The Super Bowl is selling the people watching the game. And I don't mean the ones in the stadium. Yes, those 80,000 people are cool, but that's not paying the bills. What's paying the bills is the 100 million people that are watching the Super Bowl. So the product, and for us, and I'm glad to hear you say that. You and I have had conversations about this in the past, and I'll just tell you folks, Greg is savvy when it comes to thinking about this kind of stuff. And so when everyone says we need to get archery on TV, I think Greg's going to be a great person to kind of understand that while that may be true, cornhole's on TV because a bunch of people want to watch it. It's easy to play and all that kind of stuff. So you absolutely hit the nail on the head right there. And like when folks tell me that, oh, indoor archery is not exciting, this, that, or the other, I'm just like, it is if you can have somebody on the microphone that's making it interesting. And that's, these other sports have TV timeouts and they have all
Mhm.
kinds of breaks and stuff. So, genius leaves clues. We can learn from those things. And I have no doubt that you're going to be, forward thinking in that regard. So that transition works out perfectly for this question. And obviously it's me, Greg. We've had these conversations and you see the logo behind me. And so the question is, obviously World Archery has a substantial investment into production of events. It doesn't matter what that production is, whether it's a World Cup, Indoor World Series, anything that World Archery goes to basically put their product out via the internet, they have invested well in the production side of that.
Yep.
I am a firm believer that quality of content over quality of production, especially for us, because you can't make it interesting. I mean, I've ran this test with everybody, Greg. The next time you're watching your favorite sport on TV, turn the TV on mute and see how long it stays interesting. Not
Mhm.
And so what would you be looking at? And I know you're not the straight marketing guy per se, but you're smart enough to read the room. What would you be looking at when it comes to World Archery's production of events? Not the walk in at this place, but literally what consumers will see, the actual product, what we need. What would you be looking to kind of adjust World Archery's presentation of their production to kind of draw more folks in?
I'm smiling a little bit because I've got some ideas that I actually think might be good, and I don't know if I want to give them away to World Archery till I'm in there to do it. Now, that being said, I'm probably not that selfish. If I don't get elected president, and I've told a lot of people this, if I don't get elected president, I'm still involved with archery. I'm still going to help grow archery around the world. I'm still going to do things that I think help. So I'd probably give my unsolicited advice if I didn't get in there, because I think there's a big, you've hit the nail on the head, Greg, is that we've created a good quality product, but haven't made it interesting enough for either the expert, um, who's watching, or the relatively new person that's watching. And you're absolutely right. The best example I can have of that muting your TV is I've been to some Olympic games, and often in the IOC hotel, uh, the TV has the feed from the venue, so I can turn on the TV and see whatever sport I want to watch.
Right.
No commentary. So sometimes I can find, oh, I know the US is doing something somewhere, or another team is doing something somewhere that I want to watch, but without the commentary and without even actually, it even is missing the graphics, the TV graphics. So you don't even know the score.
Right.
It's not interesting. So you're right. It's how do you add that education from the commentator standpoint that helps the person that I have no idea what's going on, or I kind of know what's going on, or I know everything. Tell me how the wind just shifted so I can understand what's going on, but
Right.
have that right balance for everybody. And in today's broadcast and streaming world, I think I'm sure I know we stream, we do a lot of things, but I've got a vision on ways to do that I think could create a better, not change the product as much as a better experience, maybe put it that way, and potentially some revenue uh, for opportunities for sponsors and everybody else.
Nice. Well, and I mean, I'm going to be all ears when it comes to that because that's I love doing that kind of stuff anyway. So I'll be excited. I mean, I've always looked at what World Archery does, and I'm like, when it comes to the quality of production, I got nothing. They're great. I mean, I built Bow Junkie on a cell phone, so I
Yeah.
I got nothing to say there. But like you said, being able to make it interesting and being able to tell stories, whether it's Mikey Slosher facing this archer, that archer, or whatever. There's always storylines there. It's just a matter of the whatever organization it may be, tell being able to sniff out those stories, tell those stories, because whether it's you or me watching, it doesn't matter what the sport is. If the commentator's telling us that these two guys have went against each other this many times and this guy's beat this guy and then this guy beat this guy, dude, I don't even care what they're doing. I want to
Yeah.
hear it because of just the story they're telling. Like, oh, these two guys go against each other all the time. I want to see who does better this time. And it doesn't matter whether they're throwing darts or golfing or whatever. That's just the way you do it. So when it comes to things like that, how, and this is not to talk about the current president, but for you specifically, how active of a role will you take in like basically being hands-on with like you said, you have some ideas, which I love, but how hands-on will the president, Greg Easton, actually be when it comes to, implementing that kind of stuff?
I'd look at I'd look at where what I do today and where I think I've had success is put together good teams, put, the right people in the right jobs, give them uh, you know, give them the mission and the vision, right? We want to get here, here's where we are. Let's agree we've got something we can work on or something we can improve. Where do we want to get to? Um, and let them do it. So hands-on from a lot of direction, a lot of um, oversight, if you will, but as actually implementing it, I need good people um, doing good things and making good decisions, and having the bandwidth to be able to do that, but also having the um, what did you call it earlier? Kind of the empowerment, sort of the space to say, hey, go, within these guidelines, make good decisions that get us to where we want to get to,
Right.
right? We got some values here. We want to continue to respect our values. Um, think about innovation and excellence, right? What can we do differently that's better? Excellence. I really kind of put that on. I think a World Cup event. I want everybody to come away. They don't have to say it's an excellent event, but when they say, what do you think? Was it worth your time? Well, yes. And this is from the athlete to a judge to the coaches to volunteers, right? Did you feel that, did you feel valued, right? Did you feel part of something kind of unique that happened here? And that's trying to drive that feeling in everybody because that's not just a feel good. I didn't take when I had my World Cups here, I took the judges out to dinner. That was a lot of years ago. That's not politicking. That's long before any of this.
Right.
One, because the right thing to do, and two, those folks they get airfare and get hotel rooms, but they're taking vacation. They're leaving their homes. They're leaving their families. I want them, I want them to know that they are valued. So I want them to feel valued. I want to express that to them. I think it's a kind of the magic sauce in business is when people feel valued, they know what they're trying to do, they're working together, that sum of their efforts multiplies,
Absolutely.
right? If you're a lone soldier and you're doing your own thing and you don't give anything about anybody else, you can only do your 100%.
Right.
Your 100% with somebody else's 100% is more than 200% when the team works together.
Absolute fact. So let's talk about the events. You mentioned the schedule and that kind of stuff. And look, we've all heard archers say, not to diss our own people, but especially American archers, that the World Cups have gotten so long that they'll like go there for 7 days, but only shoot for 3. And so, what is there any? And I don't think World Archery is, but I'll just ask the question, and you can either tell me to get bent or whatever. But is there any financial incentive for World Archery to extend these events as long as they are, or
Hmm.
could you shorten them up to a reasonable amount of time and basically change the shooter experience a little bit to where they don't have to be gone so much, especially for the American, for other countries with the funding and stuff. And, most of the Americans are pros. So them being gone for over a week for one event that's,
Yeah,
that's a good amount of time.
it's costly. They lose the other weekend. They could be making one money at an event potentially. Yeah.
Exactly.
So specific to your question, I've never thought about the time somehow tying in the revenue. I can't think of anything because really you think about World Archery, revenue comes from the organizer pays a fee to host the event. So that's kind of fixed independent of time. they have some cost with regard to staff, whether they bring in a TV truck and the satellite truck or whatever else. So, those costs go up. The only thing that's generating potentially some revenue would be that TV signal that we're selling to a few countries. And that really happens on the Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
So, um, I don't think so. I don't know that the events have actually become longer over time. I think if I remember right, my events were at least when I did them in here in Salt Lake were at least Monday or Tuesday through Sunday. So I don't know that the schedule's got any longer, but I think yours is a good point. Does it fit in people's schedules anymore? And I would agree it doesn't. And I think so I don't think there's any incentive to do it. I think if we could keep, um, obviously the integrity of the event, keep people shooting, maybe, pipe dream might be they shoot a little more or they have a little more opportunities while they're there. I think there are ways to shorten the events some, yes. At
Absolutely.
least to try to get it so you could leave wherever are you in the world, leave on Monday. That gave you the weekend, right? You leave on Monday, get to the event by location by Tuesday, start on Wednesday. So I'd have to
Yes.
think if we could do that, but that would be, I think, much better. And you go all the way through. Maybe if you show up on Wednesday, you finish on Sunday. Maybe if you show up on Tuesday, you're done on Saturday. So you get at least one of the weekends back. I'm sure this isn't news to anyone. I bet they've heard this in their surveys and other things. So I
Right.
think it's a matter of, really trying to do it. I think they tried some things in Antalya. They took the ranking round from 72 down to 60 arrows.
Uh-huh.
That didn't shorten a day or anything. Maybe they were trying that to see, okay, if we did that plus some other things, where could we get? So
Right.
I think
Absolutely.
there, I
Well,
think there's opportunities.
yeah, and I just think someone with your, willingness to listen and be creative and throw out ideas, I think just someone at your level that is even willing to look at it is probably going to come up with good solutions. So let's talk about the other thing that I've been talking about for some time, that didn't make it, then made it. And so this is exciting. Um, there's a big part of me that wishes that your father was still here to see this. To be honest, I never got to meet your father, but I wish he could see compounds getting their foot in the door for the Olympics. I think he would have probably enjoyed that, and you would be able to speak better on that than me. But your timing here is impeccable, as LA 2028 has the compound mixed teams, which everyone has heard. And so, where would and obviously you can't rob Peter to pay Paul, but how would you prioritize per se? It's always a matter of triage, but how would you prioritize or work on the compound in the Olympics agenda while still maintaining all of the other projects that World Archery has to keep going? Because obviously the ultimate goal, yes, we're in LA 2028. I'm already talking to my Australian people like, yo, you're next.
Yeah.
And so we want more slots. We want compound to get the full representation, but how would you address that balance?
Yeah, I agree. Fantastic thing. I know World Archery did a lot of work over the years trying to get compound in different ways. Um, what it really came down to, my understanding, I've heard this from a number of people, but not necessarily, firsthand from example, the IOC, but my understanding, the IOC has a very hard limit on the total number of athletes in the games.
Right.
They're doing that because the games are getting too big and too few cities can even think about doing the games. I think they're just trying to keep it from growing too much. So when a sport asks for new athletes for a discipline that they've got, a new version of their sport, the answer is, well, a hard no. And it's been such a hard no because they know if okay, well, that's a really great idea. Let's let you do it. They're going to have 27 other sports knocking on the door. So
Right.
they've really had to, despite a lot of politicking, which is very important in this world, a lot of conversations, they've had to say with that, we're not adding any spots, which is why the unfortunate side is recurve had to give up 24 spots total, 12 men and 12 women to make the slots for the compound. The downside of that from the recurve and archery around the world standpoint is that's going to make it harder for more countries to compete, to get into the Olympics.
Right.
Why that's important is now we go back to our earlier discussion. The funding comes from the Olympics. So priority number one, keep the sport in the Olympics.
Right.
Right. If we're not in the Olympics, there's nothing good happens, right? Keep the sport in the Olympics. So who votes on what sports are in the Olympics? Oh, those are IOC members. Where are IOC members from? They're from countries all over the world. When it comes down to vote for a sport, which happens sometimes, I think it happens I don't know if it's a 4-year cycle, but they vote on who's in the Olympic program. They think, what does archery mean to me in my country?
Right.
So fewer recurvers get into the event. Um, recurve is less important in a few countries. Um, not going the right way. I'm not saying it's going to hurt where we are, but it's not going the right way. So you really have to, and I know World Archery does, but think about it's the first thing I said to Tom years ago when this came up. Yeah, great idea. There's a lot of compounders out there. It's an important part of the sport. What are the unintended consequences? What else is going to happen that we're going to go, ooh, I wish that hadn't happened. So what World Archery had to do was say, okay, fine, we're going to give up some of our recurve spots to get compound in. So that's how we got to where we are. Long term, looking forward, and interesting enough, it is long term because it's every 4 years you get to either have something new or try something new or have something new different. So it's a very long cycle, but I've spent some time talking to some of my advisors with a lot of knowledge in this area too, of like, okay, what does that pathway look like, right? What might we do next? We got mixed team in there. Is there the other thing that's important is medals. How many medals does your sport offer? So
Right.
are there ways to offer more medals with fewer athletes? Are there ways to juggle how the athletes are allocated that doesn't make recurve too much harder to get in, but adds us some medals or adds us some spots? So I think there's opportunities to do that over time to try to get. Yeah, yeah. Personally, I mean, I'm glad compounds in, but it's the right way to do it. And so I'm not criticizing where we got to, but it's sort of a shame that we kind of got in with this little mixed team, right? This little piece. We don't have individuals, we don't have a full team event, we don't have all the other things that recurve does. So, and I'm not saying the only objective is to balance those over these, next games that I might be involved with, but it's to look at, okay, how can we do that and make not make sure, but get an eye out what are the other consequences of us making this decision.
Sure. Well, the collateral damage is a real thing. And so, and a lot of people don't necessarily understand that we only focus on the events that we look at, the sports we look at, but sports come and go. I mean,
Mhm.
it just is what it is. And so what will it take to get a full, contingent of recurve and compound archers in the Olympics? Yeah, I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
I do know this. Come LA 2028, every archer on planet Earth, all of us need to tune in and watch. We need to, I don't even care. If you're at work, turn on the stream and put it on mute. We need the views.
Run up the numbers. That's right.
Right. We need the views. Turn on every device you got, put it on NBC stream. And even if you're only watching one of them, turn them all on.
Yeah,
So
well, I'm going to build everybody a comment bot in AI, and they can just flip on the bot, and it'll make a comment every few minutes. So it'll be great.
yeah, no, that's absolutely what it is. But your point is well taken. You can't, we can't cannibalize the recurve side just for our own benefit. But to that point, you've been doing this a long time, and so I would like to hear your opinion on what we've seen from compound from India, what we're
Hmm.
seeing from Korea, like these countries that historically compound wasn't even a thing, are now all of a sudden not only doing compound, they're investing in compound and they're getting good in
Yep.
compound.
Yeah. And they didn't come from nowhere. I think they're astute enough to see. I don't think they didn't have any inside information, but they had, well, I don't know, but I think they're astute enough to say, this is coming.
Right.
We've got more. This is coming. We've got more top level archers than we need. couple of recurvers than we need. Let's make some of them compounders. I
Yep.
mean, I can almost see that thought process happening. So yeah, they've been working on it for years. And you're right. You go to these events now, and you're like, wow, it does feel like they came from nowhere. Um, but they've been working on it. India, you're right. I mean, India. I just was talking to the president of their federation in a couple of different countries I met him in recently, and just talking about the real interesting things they've got going on down there. And their grassroots program, where I don't know how many people they got, but they've got a lot of kids that are playing with bows. And then I think from that they sort of, hey, who had a little bit of interest, who's kind of got the it's an interesting sport. It's not like I think gymnastics in other countries you've heard over the years about them sort of measuring these little kids, right? And oh, hey, you're going to be
Right.
built for a gymnast, and you're going to go be a salute and go be a gymnast, right?
Right.
You can't quite do that with archery, right? We found that there are a lot of different people and body styles at work, and what's happening is a lot of it's up here, right? How they think, how they focus, how they whatever they do that makes the magic of working at a world-class level. But having a lot of people you start maybe seeing who are some of those people that are gravitating to it and like it and are have the both components of it. So India is doing some great stuff. I don't know if you've heard about it, talked about it much. They're working to put together a super archery league, which will involve international archers, Indian archers. His concept is recurve and compound together. They're shortening the time a little bit to make it a little faster. And they have these leagues in some other sports, and they've been very popular. He wants to
Nice.
have team sponsors that buy these teams, and then eventually after the first season trade and buy athletes. And it's he's it's hugely it's great. Seems like a great idea. It's a long way from here to
Sure.
get there, but he's putting together the effort to try to line up the athletes and line up the sponsors and line up the people that want to buy the teams. And I think could be a very interesting model to say, hey, does that work? And how else does back to the president thing? How else does World Archery stay involved with that, be collaborative, so that if there's a part of that that can be exported, or how would we do some of that around the world? Is some really interesting ideas.
Absolutely. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you spending some time with me today. I know you're a busy man. And
Yep.
so I'm going to turn over this last little part to you. You are welcome to let just let's hear it. Make your pitch. And I know you're not very self-aggrandizing. You're very, very humble and all that kind of stuff, but this
Yeah.
this is it, man. Let's hear it, Greg.
No, I will. Yeah, I've said this to a lot of countries around the world. I'm here for archery, right? I don't need anything out of this. I want to help if I can. If I get elected, I'm going to do the best I can and hopefully bring something new, for sure, something new and different. We'll see what it is. Independent of support I get, I've had people say, for whatever reason, I'm not going to support you. Not very many, but a couple. I say, look, that's great. Not great. Thank you for telling me. And when I get in the role, it doesn't matter, right? I want to support everybody in archery. So I'm kind of here for you. I want to commit and make this thing happen. And the last not right, I'm not going anywhere really quick, but I'm 60, right? I'm not getting any younger. I got to figure out what I want to do for my last career jump in my life, and this could be an interesting one. And if I don't, like I said earlier, I want to still work and support archery, and I hope everybody around there, all your people from around the world know that that's what we're here to do. The foundation is embarking on a new direction too. Uh, Through my dad's passing, some of his estate went there, and you know, we've got funding. I need the giant, big idea. What can we do to move archery forward and um, get it just more ingrained? I think saying we're going to be soccer or we're going to be tennis or baseball is not you want to have a realistic, achievable goal, right? Not something that's just purely pie in the sky, but get us in front of more people and get our sport more exposed to people is the objective, and try to inspire some growth in archery. So that's what I'm going to be doing the rest of my life, and some of that might be during being president, and so we'll see how that goes.
All right, everybody, there you go. That's Greg Easton right there. He has, this has been his life. It was his father's life. It's been his life. And when he says he just wants to get in there and do the best that he can, the best that he can has generally always been good. It's been good for us. It's been good for his companies. It's more importantly, it's been good for the sport, whether it's his father, Jim, or Greg. I mean, going back to his grandpa for criminy sake, it's when the Eastons are doing their best, it's good for the sport. And so if you are wanting to get involved with the World Archery Vote, obviously Rod Menzer, I think it'd be fun just to flood Rod Menzer with support Greg Easton's anyway, just because I'm like that. And I like Rod and I think it'd be funny. And then I would get the text messages from him saying thanks. But anyway, wherever you are in the world, I would encourage you to support Greg. I think he has shown not just on this podcast, but in his life of work with his companies. You hear his mentality when it comes to surrounding himself with the right people, and that's what the best leaders do. There is no single leader that can do everything perfectly, but they surround themselves with people who can do certain things perfectly. And that is reflected in Greg's companies. That is reflected in the way Greg carries himself. And I just think he's the right man for the job. I'm excited to see what he can do with World Archery. We are on the cusp of some things, after the vid, and as we move forward in 2025 with the internet and AI and all of these things, I think we're on the precipice, not just with the Olympics, but with a lot of things when it comes to the participation side of our sport. So I want to thank Greg Easton for coming on the program. Contact your federation's president and tell them that, not to be corny, but I'm going to be a vote for Greg Easton as a vote for archery. And that's just what it is. He's never wavered in that support. And so my support for Greg is not just because I like him as a dude. I think he's the right guy for the job, plain and simple. So that's going to be it for the podcast today. If you're out there traveling, whatever you're doing this upcoming week, you guys know the drill. We don't want to hear from you, or excuse me, we don't want to hear about you. We want to hear from you. And as always, folks, love, peace, and chicken grease.